Prior to the Civil War and the Reconstruction era, while there were a handful here and there, police departments weren't really a thing in America. Protection was mainly for the wealthy business owners and landlords who hired private security, while the working class whites policed their own neighborhoods with armed militias. These militiamen often being a mob of the town's drunks and degenerates with guns. But as the institution of slavery ballooned at the turn of the 19th century, the demand for private security increased. For as the divide between North and South over the issue of slavery started to grow, runaways were starting to become more frequent and slave revolts more violent. And a lot of these militiamen would be hired as overseers and slave catchers. And when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1865, well, this caused a huge dilemma in the South. You see, now, all of these working class and poor whites who were hired as overseers and slave catchers, or enforcers of the slave codes, were now unemployed. Well, not really. You see, these newly freed blacks, it's not like they had jobs lined up for them, or land that they owned, or 40 acres and a mule that they were promised. Ugh. So most of them went back to work on the same plantations they were slaves on. This is when the wealthy, former slave owners had the brilliant idea to pass the burden of hiring private security or funding militiamen onto the government. These former overseers were now given badges and government-issued weapons. Police stations started to spring up all across America. And these new police departments were tasked to protect and serve. Protect the land, protect the businesses, and serve the wealthy. Oh, and to enact what was now the Black Codes. The Black Codes being a set of discriminatory laws against black people, basically meant to keep the niggers in line. These Black Codes would ultimately become the basis for the Jim Crow laws of the South. But here's the thing. Not every freed black family decided to continue to work on the plantations. There were some who found a way to generate their own wealth, build their own towns, and exist peacefully separate from their white counterparts. Or so they thought. To the elite class of the South, a lot of them politicians, these freed slaves were still their properties in their eyes, and in no way should they be seen as equals. At least, that's what Abraham Lincoln promised.
There is a physical difference between the white and black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together on terms of social and political equality. There must be the position of superior and inferior, and I, as much as any other man, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white.
And due to a magical loophole in the 13th Amendment, black men could be and would be rounded up off the streets and forced to provide free labor anyway. And this was perfectly legal so long as the police, or former slave catchers, could find a crime to charge them with, whether a crime was actually committed or not. And this set the groundwork for the American prison system to become the institution it is today. And exactly where do we stand today when it comes to the police, the institution of prison, and black people?
If they gave you 25 to life, you doing at least 35 out of that. Because you got to get hit at the board at least 3 times. By the time you get home, there's nothing left in you. So most of our warriors, if something went down in our community, is where? In jail. Upstate New York, Clinton, Daramora, Comstock, Caxsackie and all that. Those communities are communities where you have nothing but white people. And their whole town is being employed by the jail. So if they don't come to our hood and lock us up, they can't feed their family.